The problem is that our own government could be potentially shielding other countries from stealing that data.
It's okay if you don't want to accept it. Something is so wrong with your brain that you don't know something's wrong with your brain. Looking at nothing.
No, don't do it, Scotty, no! Give me a kiss, baby. I was talking about a news story that never really got covered. Back in December, basically a leader Senator Ron Wyden, who's like the head of like a couple different of like groups that need to know in Congress, right? Financial committee, something another. He sends out a letter to Google and Apple and says that he's been told by our governments that 99%, so basically 100%, but they can't say 100%, 99% of all cell phones in the world are being illegally monitored by the governments. He just says governments. He doesn't say U.S. He doesn't say foreign. He just says governments. And the way they're monitoring it is not by, like, they have to have a warrant to go to your phone, right? If they want to take something from your phone in the U.S., they have to have a warrant. They're not getting it at your phone. They are going to Google, who owns Android, and Apple, who owns iPhone, which make up 99% of all phones. And when something happens, like when I go live, you get a notification on your phone that says Cold Beer Confessional went live. Or when you get a text message, it says, Mom, and then it shows like a short snippet of the text up top. Or if you get a phone call, it'll say like a call this time, whatever. Like Amazon will say your order of so-and-so has been shipped. Those notifications. So those notifications come from apps in your phone. They're called push notifications, but they don't come from the app directly to your phone. They go from an app to basically like your own individual cloud server, your own server that's hosted by the whoever makes your cell phone, right? Google or Android or Apple. That's a little server, and that little server then sends it to your phone. That way you get an alert. So it sends the business or whoever owns the app, sends an alert to the cloud server, and that cloud server sends it to you. All of that data is being tracked by governments around the world. And when Ron Wyden contacted Google and Apple and said, hey, I've been informed that 99% of all cell phones in the world are being basically maliciously mined for data through push notifications and circumventing everything around a search warrant.
Warrant
That exists in the United States, and we'd like to know more about it. Google and Apple responded with that they're under a gag order from the U.S. government and not allowed to talk about it. It says in a letter to the Department of Justice, let's see, here's the letter. I meant to cover this a long time ago and I didn't get to do it, but he's known about it for a year, so I guess I'm better than him. I write to, over a year, 2 years. I write to urge the Department of Justice to permit Apple and Google to inform their customers and their general public about demands of smartphone app notification records. In the spring of 2022, my office received a tip that government agencies in foreign countries were demanding smartphone push notification records from Google and Apple. My staff have been investigating this tip for the past year. We've included contacting Apple and Google in response to that query. These companies told my staff that information about this practice is restricted from public release by the government. Basically, they're under gag order. Push notifications are the instant alerts delivered by the smartphone users by apps, such as notification about a new text message or a news update. They aren't sent directly from the app provided to user smartphones. Instead, they pass through a kind of digital post office, which is run by that's the cloud server, which is run by the phone's operating system. So yeah, that's a good way to think about it, is a post office. So you get mail at your house. So if I mail a letter from my house to my house, the mailman's not going to pick it up in my mailbox and drop it back off in my mailbox. It's going to the post office first, right? Where it gets sorted. Then it'll come back to my house. So they're not coming to your house and like snooping in your mailbox. They're at the post office just reading all your mail before it gets to you. Instead, they pass through a kind of digital post office run by the phone's operating system provider. For iPhones, the service is provided by Apple's push notification service. For Android phones, it's Google Fire-based cloud messaging. These services ensure timely and efficient delivery of notifications, but this also means that Apple and Google serve as intermediaries in this transmission process. As with all the information these companies store about their users, because Apple and Google deliver push notification data, they can be secretly compelled by governments to hand over this information. Importantly, app developers don't have many options. If they want their apps to reliably deliver, so if I make an app and I don't want it to be susceptible to this, then you can't have notifications at all, right? If I make an app and I'm like, I don't want the government to be able to get these through this post office system, then I can't have notifications. I don't have another option. If they want their apps to reliably deliver push notifications on these platforms, they must use these services provided by Apple or Google, respectively. Consequently, Apple and Google are in a unique position to facilitate government surveillance of how users are using particular apps. The data these two companies receive includes metadata detailing which app received a notification and when, as well as the phone and associated Apple or Google account to which that notification was intended to be delivered. So you might say, who cares if the government knows I ordered dog food from Amazon? Well, there's also other things that come from Amazon, like who's getting this information, because you got payment systems there. You may have some purchases you don't want the government to know about. You may have purchases you don't want tagged. Plus, we're including text messages. Even sometimes when you get sent a photo, like there'll be a little preview of the photo in your notifications. Like it's not just the notifications that everybody gets. My drug dealer texts me all the time, and he's like, hey, you want some of them things? And I'm like, hell yeah, I do. They could be getting that. The data these two companies receives includes metadata detailing which app received a notification, as well as the phone and associated Apple or Google account to which that notification was intended to be delivered. In certain instances, they might also receive unencrypted content, which could range from back-end directives for the app to the actual text displayed to a user in the app notification. Apple and Google should be permitted to be transparent about the legal demands they receive, particularly from foreign governments, just as companies regularly notify users about other types of government demands for data. These companies should be permitted to generally reveal whether they have been compelled to facilitate this surveillance practice, to publish aggregate statistics about the number of demands they receive,